Corinne, we are standing here in front of European Parliament and the Esplanade Solidarność, but we are talking about youth in Europe today. We have elections in 2024. We have very difficult situation in Europe at the moment, with war in Ukraine, energy crisis, etc., 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 post-COVID problems.
True.
How much Europe talks about youth and their participation in elections and their interest in democracy as we know it or as we knew it? We can talk about that also.
Well, to be fair, I think the European Parliament, they start already working on it. They do place a focus on youth in the sense that they recognize it's one of the electorate that is like the hardest to mobilize. They do plan to launch, for instance, and we were speaking a bit earlier, to launch their strategy for the 2024 elections during the European Youth event in 2023, so next year. So I think youth are recognized, at least by the institutions, as, you know, an important electorate. In my opinion, they're not recognized by political parties and by politicians as an electorate that they need to, you know, address specifically, talk about their issues and so on. And I think that's a challenge because, you know, as much as we can do as civil society engagement and mobilizing young people for participating in elections, if the politicians, if the ones that they have to vote for, they're not addressing them or they don't speak directly to them, then it's like, you know, a dialogue of people who don't speak the same language. So I think the institutions have recognized it, but at the level of public administration, then there's only so much that you can do. But then the politicians, they really need to do a better job.
But if you are a politician of 50 or whatever, 40, but a member of traditional political party, which has its program, which has its constituencies, and, you know, 50% of people in her or his country go out and vote, of that he needs 20-25% to win the election, and he's fine. No one is asking, you know, how legitimate maybe that government is. So you are spending your time with young people, you are doing policies, advocating your NGO. Are kids disaffected with politics, or what is the situation now?
My feeling is that we have to break the myths around politics. And also we have to break the myths around young people are not interested in politics, because they are. Yeah. It's just a matter of connecting their real life experiences, you know, the quality of education, the fact that they can travel around Europe, the fact that they have access or not to mental health services or to jobs or to whatever affects their lives. We have to do a better job at connecting those experiences with politics and with the power of their vote and of their ballots. Also, I mean, statistically, young people Europe is, you know, a continent that is aged. So by definition, young people, they are not numerous electorate, so to speak. However, I think we also don't do a good job, and I think the media here plays a crucial role. For example, if I look at the US in particular, they report on the difference that young people make in elections, or at least the potential that they have to make in elections. And the message that you put forward as media is that if you show up and vote, this is the difference that you can make. And we don't have that kind of message in Europe, for example.
But we have some statistics. You've mentioned US in the recent elections saw that Generation Z basically changed the tide that was projected. But in Europe, we see young people voting for far-right more and more.
And that's a question of education, and it's a question of how much disenfranchised they are from the political class, or how much they see themselves represented by the mainstream political class. And also the social media plays a crucial role, because young people, on average, a young person spends around 7-8 hours a day on social media platforms. And given like the algorithms and the way they are designed, we create echo chambers and polarization, and of course you're exposed to one view of the world, and not, and usually that's not the centrist one.
I have to ask you, we are speaking a couple of days after the match between Morocco and Belgium, where we had riots of young people here in Brussels, it's always said, they're of Moroccan origin, but basically they're Bruxellois or they're Belgian.
Belgian citizens.
These grievances that are represented here, that we see here in the core and the heart of Europe, how important it is to tackle these inequalities in Europe that wants to show its global strength at this moment, but it cannot tackle its own diversity still, especially in the West.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're asking me this, because personally I really think that even the European sector is the European youth sector is not very representative, in the sense that we still have voices of young people who are not heard, especially, Roma youth, young people of African descendants, Muslim youth, and you see that they are not organized in the same way, they don't have access to the same resources, to the same power positions, and so on. And there are tensions in society, and I think we shouldn't fool ourselves that, we are all, everything is nice and happy and we have a lot of resources on the table and young people are happy. No, we still have tensions in society, and yes, you may have seen what happened with the Moroccan
young people.
To be honest, I didn't really follow specifically, but obviously I think the Moroccan population is by default younger.
Yeah, and Molenbeek, as a part of Brussels, has a stigma from the terrorist attacks in 2015 still. Yes, maybe. I mean, for me, Brussels, it's a very segregated city, as I was mentioning, and you rarely see people moving from one part of the city to the other, I would say. So we are standing in what it's called Brussels bubble. In this Brussels bubble, in European Parliament, there's a statistic of just 13 people under 30 years of age being MPs in this house. What does it say to you?
It says that young people don't have as equal access to power positions as the older generation, for sure. Also, maybe that they find other ways to express themselves, and maybe they don't go for political battles, that they don't probably have enough resources to stand for office, to run for public office, because we know that, party structures, they come with some... you need a lot of capital and connections and so on, so it's really an elitist world. And there is actually a discussion around youth quotas. Should we have it or should we not have it in the parliament? We do have informal groups like EU40 and so on, but it's clearly not enough. And I think the school or the organizations, they don't really prepare you to run and stand for public office.
And how to bridge these discrepancies that all of this that you've mentioned, because we saw, and from educational system differences all around the Europe, and things going this side, not this side or this side, but this side more and more. What's your organization basically doing and thinking about it in that regard?
I mean, what we saw, to be honest, is that nothing replaces constant dialogue and constant engaging of young people. And not only 5 months before elections, and not only when you need their vote and so on, but on a daily basis, really on a daily basis, and in the spaces where they are, whether it's school, youth clubs, wherever, in the bar even, or in the most informal places that you can think of. And EU had, I think, an attempt on that with the Conference on the Future of Europe. I'm not really happy on how it went, and I think many of the ones that we were first-hand involved are not really happy, because the process was not very transparent and so on. But I think we are on a path of trying to innovate in democracy, and we see that if we don't innovate, then we are starting to lose, especially the new generations, the young generations.
And for the end, you've mentioned end bubbles and disenfranchisement of young people and interest in politics. How much this age of disinformation and maybe lack of context and critical thinking is, helping or, putting us on some other track?
Well, I think we have to be really careful, because these days, as I see, is that it's a rush for quick results, and we want to see young people, going to vote, participating, and being influenced by influencers and so on. But a quick dance on TikTok doesn't make the difference. You need education at school, you need resources, you need people to have critical thinking, to read books, to be encouraged to get involved in activities and so on. I think we shouldn't be looking so much for quick results, and I think communication, comms and PR is not the answer to this. And I really, really hope, and thank you that you as a journalist are paying attention to this. I really hope that media will understand their role in, putting forward the message that you have the power as a young person and your vote matters. Is just that you have to, stand up for what you believe, and you have to go beyond social media.
And we all need to be more present in the physical world, because you also mentioned mental health. We saw as one of the results of the Conference of Future of Europe, which young people put high on the agenda, is mental health.
Mental health, yes. And especially after COVID, when they were isolated, they had less intimacy, less privacy than adults or people in their 20s or whatever. So yes, it's really a challenge. We see, for example, results and surveys from Eurofund that measures the quality of life of young people, and this is really always coming up. And it's a serious issue because it affects the quality of life, and we have to look that some young people, the 20 years old, they already graduate into a recession. And my generation, we're already passing through the second economic recession and so on. So, yeah, we need more, more human-centered policies and also more services at the end of the day, because...
For the end, you said fantastic thing, human-centered policies. What kind of language do we need? Because it often says that, we have politicians that are not here in the real world, and when you talk with some meta languages wherever, or on these old arenas, and not real life, what kind of language do we all need in this human-centered politics? Do we need some other language? You had some fantastic campaign that you did for the youth voters engagement on the last election.
Well, at the end of the day, it's really about speaking the language that,
of every day.
Of young people,
us,
exactly. They use it and refer to their experiences and find out what they are into. So just, don't. And I think another challenge is that we underestimate the young people. Don't underestimate them. Their power to actually see through the bullshit, especially with the politicians. So.
Thank you so much, Corina, for your time.
Thank you.